There are moments in life when silence says more than any argument ever could. When someone looks at you, not with love, not even with anger, but with total indifference, and you suddenly realize this isn't a marriage, this isn't a partnership, it's something else entirely, and for years it lived right in front of the cameras. A family that once stood for unity and faith was quietly falling apart behind closed doors. And now, the truth is pouring out one episode at a time. Hi friends, this is Helena, and welcome back to TLC's Sister Wives News. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss what TLC didn't want us to see coming. And I'm curious, what moment made you stop and think, wait, this isn't love anymore? Drop it in the comments below because we need to talk. Today's story isn't about divorce papers or who said what in a confessional. It's about years of emotional sacrifice, women learning to reclaim their voices, and the slow unraveling of one man's control. There's betrayal, there's heartbreak, but there's also freedom, courage, and a kind of honesty that's been a long time coming. So buckle in, because what really happened inside the Brown family is way deeper than what you think you saw on the surface. Long before the word divorce was ever said out loud, you could feel the tension thick in the air. Something just didn't feel right anymore. The Brown family had built their entire public image on unity, but if you were watching closely, the fractures had already started to show years ago. They weren't yelling. They weren't fighting on camera. But the silence, the glances, the body language, it was deafening. Fans who followed since the early seasons remember when Meri started pulling back emotionally after her legal divorce from Kody in season 9. Sure, she said it was just paperwork so Kody could legally adopt Robin's kids. But come on, that moment shifted everything. Suddenly, Meri wasn't a legal wife anymore. She was a spiritual partner with no legal standing. And what followed? A slow fade out that hurt more than any blow-up ever could. Then came the emotional neglect. There's one episode in particular, season 14, episode 5, where Christine literally begs for Kody's attention. She admits, flat out, that she doesn't feel important to him anymore. And his response? Cold, detached, like her pain was an inconvenience. That same season, we saw Janelle quietly taking on the role of peacemaker while also being emotionally sidelined. Meanwhile, Robin, well, she had the lion's share of his time and affection, and nobody was supposed to say anything about it. It wasn't just favoritism. It was the imbalance of power that slowly ate away at every relationship in that family. Kody started deciding where he'd sleep, who he'd visit, how he'd rotate, and eventually, he stopped rotating at all. He stayed where he wanted, with who he wanted. And the rest of the wives? They were left wondering if they'd done something wrong. By season 15, it was undeniable. The pandemic didn't create the cracks. It just exposed them. Christine was breaking under the weight of feeling second place, third place, or maybe not even on the scoreboard anymore. The way Kody refused to travel to see her and their daughter Isabel during her spinal surgery, that wasn't just neglect. That was a message. You are not my priority. This wasn't just about a man with 4 wives. It was about emotional abandonment dressed up as religion. And one by one, the women started realizing they'd been emotionally alone for years. There's a moment, and fans of Sister Wives know it well, when Christine says she doesn't want to be married to Kody anymore. And she says it clearly, firmly, without tears or drama. Just truth. And I don't know about you, but I paused the episode right there, because that wasn't just a line in a reality show. That was a woman reclaiming her voice after decades of being silenced. Christine had spent years trying to keep sweet, trying to make it work, trying to earn love that should have been freely given. And when you look back, really look back, you realize how much pain she'd buried just to keep the peace. Remember her saying she felt like she was living in a basement, both literally and emotionally? That metaphor? That wasn't just a throwaway line. That was Christine finally saying out loud what so many women have felt in silence. She felt hidden, pushed aside, unseen. And the way Kody responded when she started pulling away? He got defensive, cold, almost punishing. There's a scene in season 16 when he says he's no longer attracted to her, on national television, as if she hadn't spent decades raising his children, supporting his other marriages, and smiling through the pain. That moment was gutting. but it was also clarifying. It took guts to walk away. Real guts. Because Christine wasn't just leaving a man, she was leaving a belief system, a lifestyle, a family structure that she dedicated most of her adult life to, and she was doing it in front of cameras, in front of fans, in front of people who were raised to believe that loyalty meant staying no matter how much it hurt. Watching her pack up the boxes, load the car, and take her daughter truly to a new life in Utah, that was powerful. That was freedom in motion, and you could see it in her face. Christine was done begging for love, done settling for scraps. She had finally reached the point where staying was more painful than leaving, and that's the moment everything changed. Because once Christine chose herself, it sent shock waves through the entire family. The silence was broken, the spell was lifted, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. Let's talk about control. Not the loud, obvious kind, but the kind that creeps in slowly and chips away at a person's sense of worth. Because when you look back at Kody's behavior over the years, especially leading up to Christine's departure, it becomes painfully clear. Control wasn't always about shouting or slamming doors. It was in the decisions, the silences, the favoritism, and the rules that somehow always seemed to protect his comfort over everyone else's happiness. During the early seasons, Kody sold this idea of equality, 4 wives, 1 big happy family. But reality looked different. Christine was always the one chasing affection. Janelle had to build her independence because emotional support just wasn't there. And Meri, she got stuck in a space where guilt and obligation replaced real connection. Remember the COVID protocols? That was a huge turning point. Kody laid out these strict rules for the entire family. Rules that, by the way, didn't seem to apply when he was spending the majority of his time at Robin's house. Janelle and Christine were left to choose between seeing their adult children or pleasing Kody. And when they pushed back, he called them disrespectful, unsafe, even selfish. It was a clear power play, his way or the highway. And let's not forget that infamous scene where Kody told Christine he didn't want an intimate marriage anymore, then tried to blame it on her disloyalty. That wasn't honesty. That was emotional leverage. He withheld love like it was a reward for obedience. And Christine, after years of playing by the rules, finally stopped begging. Even Meri, who stayed loyal longer than anyone could have expected, was pushed out emotionally long ago. Their marriage had crumbled into a friendship that barely functioned. But Kody wouldn't officially end it. He left her in limbo. That's not partnership. That's control dressed up as indecision. The truth is, Kody's leadership wasn't about unity, it was about maintaining dominance. And as each wife began to find her own voice, his control started slipping. Because you can only keep people small for so long before they start reaching for air. And once Christine stood up, it exposed the imbalance everyone had been trying so hard to ignore. If there was one wife who stayed too long hoping things would change, it was Meri. Her story is heartbreaking, not because she wasn't strong, but because she held on with everything she had, long after the love was gone. You could feel it every time she smiled through the pain, every time she tried to start a new conversation with Kody, and he shut it down like it didn't even matter. There were years of emotional silence, moments where Meri would reach out, hoping to rebuild, only to be met with cold distance, like that scene where she asked Kody if they could try again, if there was even a chance, and he looked her in the eyes and told her he didn't consider them in a romantic relationship anymore. Just like that. No emotion, no empathy. It felt like the end of a conversation he had already finished in his head years before, and yet Meri stayed. After the catfishing scandal, after the public shame, after being legally divorced so Robin could marry Kody and adopt her kids. That legal divorce? It broke something, not just on paper, but in spirit. Because even though they called it a technicality, the message was clear. Meri wasn't the priority anymore. And slowly, she faded into the background of her own marriage. It wasn't just about losing the title of first wife. It was about being emotionally left behind. Kody didn't fight for her. He didn't comfort her. He just drifted, made excuses, blamed her for the emotional distance while refusing to offer even a sliver of vulnerability himself. And Meri? She sat there, still trying to be loyal to a man who had already moved on in every way that mattered. By the time she finally accepted it was over, the grief had already settled in. What made it even more painful was how quiet that ending was. No big breakup scene, no explosive confrontation, just emptiness, like a door slowly closing on a room that had been vacant for years. Mary's goodbye wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a slow, painful realization that sometimes the person you're waiting on has already left, and all that's left to do is walk away, for real this time. Janelle was always the quiet backbone of the family, the one who kept things running while everyone else's drama stole the spotlight. But if you've been watching closely, you saw it coming. The slow shift. The way she began standing a little taller, speaking a little louder, because when push came to shove, Janelle wasn't going to let anyone, not even Kody, come between her and her kids. The moment things cracked wide open, Christmas. That fight about holiday plans was like lighting a match in a room full of gas. Kody had made it clear, if her boys weren't going to apologize to him, they weren't welcome at the family gathering. And Janelle? She wasn't having it. Her sons weren't disrespectful. They were just calling out what so many of us saw, the double standards, the favoritism, the silence that followed their hurt. Kody wanted loyalty, but only on his terms. That scene where Janelle finally snapped was unforgettable. She stood there, emotional but firm, telling him that he couldn't just push her kids aside. You could feel the years of suppressed emotion bubbling to the surface. "You're pushing me out," she said, her voice shaking. Not out of fear, but out of decades of built-up hurt. Kody didn't just lose a wife in that moment. He lost someone who had stood by him through everything and now was done shrinking herself to fit into his version of family. And then came the conversation about finances, about property, rights, and who really had a say. Janelle asked the hard questions. She pushed back when he tried to guilt-trip her. For so long, she'd been cooperative, flexible, and willing to live in an RV just to stay close to the family dream. But suddenly, you could see the shift. She was reclaiming her voice. This wasn't just a separation. It was a woman saying, "No more. No more choosing a man over her kids. No more waiting to be chosen in return." Janelle walked into her independence with her eyes wide open, still hurt, still processing, but no longer begging for space in a family that didn't make room for her. And then came the fallout. Everything Kody tried so hard to control, it all came crashing down. The wives who once tiptoed around his moods stayed silent for the sake of peace. They were gone. One by one, they walked away, and suddenly, Kody found himself standing in a house full of silence. Just him and Robin. It's almost poetic, really. He said for years he wanted unity, loyalty, love. But what he really wanted was obedience. And when the women stopped giving it, his world started to shrink. You could see it in his body language during the tell-alls. Slumped shoulders, flushed face, fists clenched. And Robin? She was in tears again. But this time, the crying didn't bring sympathy. Viewers saw it for what it was. A reaction to losing the perfect setup she thought would last forever. Social media lit up. Fans called it karma. Others were just heartbroken that it had come to this. Memes flooded Instagram and Reddit. Clips from the reunion where Janelle said she couldn't see herself ever getting back with Kody were shared thousands of times. Christine's joy in her new home. Meri's quiet strength as she finally let go, and Janelle's calm clarity. Those were the moments people clung to. They didn't want the old dynamic back. They wanted healing. But is that even possible now? Kody kept saying he was betrayed. But viewers couldn't help asking, betrayed by what? By women who finally chose themselves? By kids who spoke up about the favoritism? He wanted control, but what he got was distance. Robin thought she'd finally have the life she wanted, just her and Kody. But even that dream is looking shaky. The damage is too deep, too public. The family that once proudly stood as an example of plural marriage, it's gone. And honestly, it may never come back. There are too many wounds, too many truths that were hidden for too long. Kody is isolated, the family fractured, and the illusion broken. People aren't watching for harmony anymore. They're watching to see how real healing happens, if it ever does, and whether the people who were once pushed aside can now finally find peace on their own terms. So now we're here. After all the seasons, all the tears, all the moments we sat on the edge of our seats, what's left of this family is no longer what it once was. And maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe the real story wasn't about staying together at all costs. Maybe it was about finally having the courage to walk away when love turns into pain, when unity turns into silence. I want to ask you, when you watched Christine pack up that moving truck, when you saw Janelle stand her ground, or when Meri finally stopped waiting for crumbs, what did you feel? Was it heartbreak? Was it relief? Or maybe both? And what does it say about a relationship when survival means leaving? This show started with a promise of family and faith. But what it gave us, what it taught us, was something even deeper. It showed us what happens when people find their voice, even if it takes years. It showed us what quiet suffering looks like, and what freedom sounds like when it finally speaks up. And I want to hear from you. What moment changed everything for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to keep walking this emotional roller coaster with me, hit that subscribe button. I'm Helena, and this is TLC's Sister Wives News. You guys, this journey isn't over, not even close. Stick around because the truth, it always finds its way out.